Hello and welcome to Nitty Literature. My name is Chelsea. I also go by Alex. I use all pronouns and welcome to the channel. I wanted to make a video today and just do some knitting and talk about my 2023 goals as well as give you sort of an introduction to my channel. So I think that'll be fun. I will tell you what I'm working on right now. I am working on the Mod Tee by Petite Knit. My philosophy with Petite Knit is all of the patterns are very basic and like staple worthy. I like to make them in fun colors. So if you can see, I'm starting some striping on my Mod Tee, and there's gonna be 3 more stripes. So I'm making it super fun and colorful. That's kind of my style when it comes to knitted things. I do make some neutrals, but mostly I like to play with color in really fun ways. So that's what I'm gonna be knitting on during this video. I specifically got this project to a point where I could kind of knit while looking at the camera and not really have to completely pay attention to what I'm doing, because it is just a bunch of purls. I'm really enjoying this pattern right now. It is a pattern that I got for Christmas this year. So yeah, I've been having a good time. Before I continue knitting, let me put that down for just a second and tell you what I am wearing. So this is a sweater that I have made. It looks vaguely like knitting, but it is actually crochet. It's the Mossy Crochet Sweater by October Gray, and it is crocheted in Big Twist Soft. I don't remember the color and I don't have it with me. I threw away the labels. And I made this in 2019, so it's been a while. I don't remember what the color is, but this is one of my favorite pieces that I've made for myself. I just think the tailoring fits really well. I will link the pattern for this. It's on Ravelry, but there is also a free YouTube tutorial, which is how I made it. So you can also go there, but if obviously you have the finances to be able to support a pattern designer, go buy it on Ravelry. So that's what I'm wearing. I figured I would wear something that I made to this. And it also kind of brings in an explanation that I wanted to give. This channel is called Nitty Literature, but I also do crochet, and it actually was the first thing that I did. I crocheted way before I was ever knitting. I started crocheting in like the beginning of 2019, end of 2018, beginning of 2019, and I started knitting end of 2020. So I had been crocheting for a year and a half-ish before I started knitting. So crochet is my first love, but I have really been in a knitting kick. Usually in the winter time, I knit a lot, and then in the summer I crochet. I just kind of feel like that's how the two crafts vibe around in my brain. So I have been doing a lot of knitting, and I do really love it as well. So yeah, to get that out of the way, I'm gonna pick up my knitting once more, and then we're gonna talk about what this video is about. So basically, I have some goals for 2023 for both my crafting, my knitting and crocheting, and I do a lot of reading, and I wanted to make some goals for both of those. And I figured what better way to document those goals and kind of hold myself accountable. Sorry, my dog is sneezing. Oh, that was really cute. What better way to hold myself accountable than by making videos and posting them on the internet for other people to see? I feel like that's a pretty good way to get people to hold me accountable. So that's kind of the idea behind this channel and the idea behind this video. I am sharing those goals with everybody, as well as some of my favorites from 2022, just because I thought that would be fun to mention. One moment. Chanel. My dog was going a little crazy. She's being real cute. She's like doing the little woolly thing. So I was distracted for a moment. I had to go kiss her. Okay, so first I am going to talk about some of my 2022 favorites. I have a favorite project and a favorite book for the year 2022, and I thought it would be a fun way to start this video out. by sharing those, because it'll kind of give you a better idea of the kind of reader and the kind of knitter that I am, if you know those things. So I'm going to start with favorite book. My favorite book of 2022 was absolutely Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I devoured that book. I have a type when it comes to most fiction, and that is about death and the afterlife and grief and loss and how we come together as people through that kind of stuff. And that is exactly what Under the Whispering Door is about. If you would like to read it completely spoiler free, you can find this all on the back cover, but spoiler free, you can skip the next like 20-30 seconds. But it's basically about a lawyer who dies suddenly and is brought to this tea shop in the afterlife, where he is given the time to gather himself and get ready to move on to what's next. So it's kind of a middle ground between death and the full afterlife. And he meets the owner of this tea shop, and there's elements of a romance, and it's a really amazing book. I really like the way that TJ Klune writes. I think his writing is very lyrical and poetic, and he uses imagery in such a fantastic way that I really, really enjoyed this book. I read it in August, and it kept being my favorite all throughout all of the things that I read for the rest of the year. It was just by far the best book of 2022 for me. And then my favorite project, this is a knitwear project. I made a calico shawl by Dawn Barker for my mom for Christmas this year. If you're not familiar with Dawn Barker, she does assigned pooling. So basically what that is the yarn is dyed in a way where there are motifs to the dye pattern. So there will be one main color and then two contrasting colors, and they make little motifs. So the assigned pooling yarn that I got for this project made little flowers, if you did what is called a flower stitch. So I made a shawl that was all pink, and then the little flowers were green and purple. I will try to put in a picture. My mom does have it now, and I didn't take a picture, so I will try to get her to send me a picture and be able to show it in some way, because I was very proud of it. It was just really fun to knit. The cluster stitch from the assigned pooling was super fun, and it was pretty easy. Other than that, it was kind of just back and forth, but I found it really fun, so that was my favorite project of 2022. So this is the goal setting portion. So I'm going to start with my bookish goals, because they're a little simpler to explain than my project knitting crocheting goals. So the bookish goals that I have for 2023, I am doing 2 reading goals on Storygraph. I will have my Storygraph linked below so you can keep up with me on there. I am trying in all of this new accountability that I'm keeping for 2023. I'm trying to keep that more updated and accurate, so y'all will actually be able to kind of see what I am reading as I'm reading it. But I am doing 2 reading challenges on Storygraph. One, I'm doing the Decolonize Your Bookshelf reading challenge by Paperbacks and Fry Bread. Again, everything is going to be linked down below. They have a page on their blog website that has journal pages for that reading challenge. You can also just go on Storygraph and it will be there for you to peruse. And it has a bunch of examples for the book. So basically that reading challenge is a bunch of different authors from a bunch of different places and heritages, and as well as main characters that are queer or disabled or neurodivergent. But for example, there's a North American Indigenous author, South American Indigenous author, BIPOC poetry. There's a whole bunch of categories, and the point of the reading challenge is to decolonize your bookshelf. As you could tell by my pronouns in the beginning of this video, I am queer. I'm genderqueer and I am also sapphic, so I read a lot of queer books already, which usually are pretty intersectional, but I wanted to make a really conscious effort of reading people that have different life perspectives from me this year. It's not something that I haven't been doing in the past, it's just I really want to make it a conscious effort. So I saw that challenge, someone talking about that challenge on TikTok, and I just really liked the prompts and I wanted to do that. And I am also doing the Storygraph, just like apps genre challenge. They have some really fun genres this year, and also some genres that I have already completed. They have a sapphic romance, they have a horror written by a woman or a non-binary author, they have a whole bunch of fun stuff. So it's categories that I'm interested in. So I figured I would do that along with the rest of Storygraph this year as well. Another bookish goal that isn't necessarily reading related, I am trying to write a book. I started my first novel back in NaNoWriMo the November that just passed, and I didn't really write a lot. I definitely did not complete or win NaNoWriMo. I only wrote like 10,000 words, so my camera just fell there. So a 2023 goal is to, I'm not gonna say to finish that novel, but to get a lot more progress done on it, because it is something that I at one day would like to finish. If you are interested in hearing what my novel is about, I will make a video on that, but I'm not gonna get too into it right now. If you are not surprised, if you shouldn't be surprised by this, it is similar to the topics that I was talking about before with Under the Whispering Door that I really love. It includes elements of like death and romance, and it's sapphic, and I really want to finish it. I'm super excited by it. It excites me. It's something I'm passionate about, so I would really like to at least work on it. I can't make the hard goal that I will finish the novel because I'm just not in control of that. But I would really love to keep working on it. So those are all of my bookish goals for this year. Oh God, no. Another bookish goal that I have is to read all my physical TBR. This is embarrassing. I have over 150 books on my TBR, but not on my physical TBR. A lot of the reading I do is through Libby and Hoopla. I only really buy the books that I think I'm gonna reread or get a lot of use out of or are pretty, so I can put them up in my room. But I don't buy lots of hard copies of books. So I only have about 10 books in my physical TBR, so I would really like to finish all of those this year, and there are a handful of those that I'm currently reading on. One of them is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, and one of them is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. So I would like to finish both of those as well as the rest of my physical TBR by the end of 2023. Now I'm done. That's all my bookish goals. Oh, totally forgot. I keep saying that I'm done with bookish goals for 2023. I'm not. There's one more. One more. And it ties into the reading challenges that I'm doing, especially Decolonize Your Bookshelf. Something that I really want to do more of in terms of reading in 2023 is read a lot more nonfiction. I'm not a nonfiction reader. I am like strictly a fiction reader. So I want to read a lot more nonfiction, specifically theory and memoirs, because I want to. I want to hear other people's perspectives on things, and I think that that's really important to keep myself informed and educated about people in the world that do not have the same experiences as me, and also people that do have the same or similar experiences with me. I would just love to read some nonfiction text that backs up a lot of what I think, as well as some new ideas that might challenge the way I think about some things. And then especially a type of reading that I don't do very often. I want to get into more poetry. I really love poetry, but a large part of what I read is usually audiobook, and I find a lot of the point behind reading poetry is the melody in your head while you read. And I just don't know how that's going to transfer over to audiobook, so I might be buying and or finding ebook versions of a lot of the poetry books that I want to read so that I can get around that little hurdle. But I do not read a lot of poetry, even though I love poetry, and I need to force myself to read some more poetry. So there is a challenge. One of the prompts on the Decolonize Your Bookshelf challenge is BIPOC poetry. So I'm very excited. I have like 5 or 6 books saved onto that one. So we will see how much I get done. That's the other thing for that challenge. I am obviously going to read one from each category, but I would really like to read a lot from each category. We will see how much I can get done in just 365 days. But yes, that is the thoughts. So my knitting, crocheting, general yarn project goals for 2023. My biggest one is not quantifiable, but hear me out. When I started knitting and crocheting, really when I started crocheting, I bought a lot of 100% acrylic yarn because it was the thing that was financially feasible for me at the time. I was still in college, I was working a minimum wage job. I was just like, it was a hobby for me and I just wanted the cheapest and most accessible supplies for said hobby that I could find. So I bought a lot of acrylic yarn and am now finding that I don't really like wearing acrylic. There's nothing inherently wrong with acrylic yarn, and I'm not one of those people that's like, if you use acrylic, you're bad, because again, financial circumstances, and also wool can be really scratchy, and that's not a sensory thing that all people have the ability to do. So no shame to any people that use acrylic. But for me, it's just not what I enjoy my garments being made out of, but I have a lot of it. I'm not sure if I'm covering the yarn right now. Hopefully you can see it now, but I have an entire IKEA bookshelf full of yarn, and about 60 to 70% of that is 100% acrylic. So I cannot say that I am going to completely get rid of all of my acrylic yarn because realistically, I cannot make things that fast. And I'm also making a lot of projects this year that are not with acrylic yarn that I've bought new yarn for. For example, my mod tee. This is all wool. This is all sock yarn. This is all wool nylon blend. So I'm using a lot of non-acrylic in patterns this year because, again, that's what I enjoy, but I don't want all that acrylic yarn to go to waste. So right now I am making the excavation blanket with all of my acrylic. I will link that pattern, obviously, down below. It is a pattern that's supposed to be used with fingering weight scraps, but most of the acrylic yarn that I have is worsted. So I just kept the pattern and just changed the needle size to accommodate worsted weight yarn. It's the same thing. It's just I'm not gonna have quite as many stitches as the fingering weight version because that would be much larger. But I am planning to make a large blanket from the excavation blanket. You can make it as big as you want it to be, so I am gonna make it as big as humanly possible. So that's gonna take up a lot of stash and a lot of scraps. And I am also knitting on a sweater number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear in my acrylic yarn because I have a sweater quantity of one of the acrylic yarns that I have, but the rest of them are just like odds and ends of one extra ball that I didn't end up using in a project, or things like that. So there's not a lot of whole sweater quantities, and there's not a lot of big quantities that I can make garments out of. And again, I don't really like to wear garments made out of acrylic, so I'm hoping this year will be a lot of gift knitting and the excavation blanket, as well as some other little projects that I have in mind. We'll get rid of a lot of my acrylic yarn, not get rid of, but use up, so that I can tailor the kinds of fabrics that I use a little bit more to what I enjoy wearing. So that is one goal. Another big fibercraft goal of mine, I got a whole bunch of roving wool and a drop spindle and a niddy noddy, and I would really like to start spinning my own yarn. I did attempt to spin some. Obviously, it's not something that I'm going to be perfect at right at the beginning, which bugs me. I am an Aries, so I do like to be good at things right from the beginning, but I'm going to keep on that. And I would really like to spin some yarn and then make something from yarn that I made with my own two hands. That just, it seems really fun. And then my last yarn craft goal for 2023 is something that this is definitely working with, is just continuing to use color and make really fun choices with the pieces that I have, as well as kind of up my pattern game. Since I have been knitting for only 2-ish years now, I've only ever really made more, I don't know if I can say this. I think that I've made some pretty difficult things. I've made like cables and lace and stuff, but in terms of garment construction, I've really only done like top-down raglan sweaters and shirts, and I really only do long tail cast on and bind off regular ways, and I don't know how to I-cord and a whole bunch of stuff. There are a whole bunch of techniques that I don't really know how to do, and I would love to do more patterns that teach me new things. So that is something that I've really been enjoying about the mod tee. This is my very first time double knitting, so you don't technically double knit the collar, but you do double knit the little button band on the front. So this is my first time double knitting, which is super exciting. So I'm already learning new techniques. So this goal is already going pretty well, I would say. Okay, that was some talking. I feel like I've been talking forever, but I'm trying to think of if there is anything else. So if you haven't guessed it already, this channel is going to be a lot of knitting chats, a lot of book reviews and reading vlogs, and knitting podcasts talking about patterns that I'm making, and kind of the intersection of both of my hobbies in both yarn crafts and reading and bookish things. They're, the two things that I'm most passionate about. So it's gonna be exciting. I'm excited. So I'm gonna put my knitting down for just a second so that I can look at the camera. So that is a brief little recap of the end of 2022 and my favorites from last year and my goals for this year for 2023. Again, hey, it's so nice to meet y'all. If anyone ends up watching these videos, hey. If no one ends up watching these videos, then I will just have to hold myself accountable to these goals, and I will. Don't you get it twisted. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you've watched all the way through to the end, I'm so sorry. Hopefully I will get better at doing this, at talking to a camera and compiling my thoughts, but I really appreciate you watching. And if you have any comments, questions, theories, life quandaries, moral quandaries, if you have any videos that you'd like to see from me, you can put them all down below, and I would love it if you came to hang out on this little journey that I'm going through. If you like knitting and literature and nitty literature, you should join. We're gonna have a fun time. Okay. Bye.